One Kappa Open, once again, going to be the champion of choice versus Wolzarg's Polka the Conflagrator. Have we seen Wolzarg in a matchup here, or is this our first
I believe this is
poke?
the first. I think this is our first polka. Our first polka.
So we see the opening shards from both players hitting the board, both keeping 7. Fearsome Uranez sleeves versus unsleeved One Kappa Open. So we see the Diamond Shard lead from Steel. We know he's running 3 shards at this point. Wolzarg drops the turn 2 Stormcloud, which we've discussed a couple of times during the tournament. Turn 2 Stormcloud has benefits and losses. If he follows it up with a turn 3 Stormcloud and Shard, it makes a lot of sense. Also, interestingly, from what we've seen of Steel's deck, he doesn't have a ton of answers specifically just for, like, a Stormcloud. It's possibly his Meeks. We see the Queen Victoria coming down onto the board, a 1/3 Queen, with the ability to reduce the cost of humans in hand, and also give invincibility to princes, princesses, kings, and I believe that's it, not queens. We see one counter going onto that Stormcloud, and the turn being passed over. Wolzarg not making any ferocious moves quite yet. On his Shard curve, though, Steel is running, in fact, a Kappa deck that is 1 Kappa Open.
The only 1 Kappa Open in the tournament, right?
That is both factual as a joke and untrue as not a joke. I had to look it up real quick. This is not the only One Eye Open deck. I'm not spoiling anything by saying that. There was one other One Eye Open player. Oh, it's not. No, it's not a running Kappa. It's a 1 Kappa Open. So we see that ability being used, the one eye open ability here, to activate Queen Grace's cost reduction ability multiple times, allowing Lord Benjamin to hit the board for free here. Which is interesting because it can't actually get around Stormcloud. That was a lot of push to put a human out onto the board that actually can't swing through the Stormcloud, and in addition to not being able to swing through the Stormcloud, is now going to be returned to hand and have its cost increased by 1.
For a net cost of 1.
Yeah, for a net cost of 1 now. We see the Shard of Innovation coming out, finding another diamond. Still can't see Steel's thresholds, but I believe he does have a Sapphire. Well, he must have a Sapphire. He played Benjamin. And he's replaying Benjamin now. With 2 resources left open, does he have a follow-up play? It looks like no.
Even for
so he's playing against a pocket player here. Gorefeast is always a terrifying option. Even that innocent-looking 0/2 Stormcloud could always be first a 1/2 and then a 2/2 flying threat. So the best way to do the math when you're facing down a Polka Gorefeast player is to remember that if you don't block the Blaze Elemental, you will take 9 damage, and then do the rest of the math on the board. So it's always best to stay at a relatively high health total to begin with. I mean, that's just clear.
Attack times 2
But
plus
also,
3.
yeah, exactly.
But
And now in this case, we see the Storm Clouds, the Stormlings. No, you go ahead. The Stormlings are dangerous because...
Well, I was going to... It's dangerous because they're additional troops. Each one of them, they can't be blocked. And 2x plus 3, they're going to be 5 damage each were they to attack with a Gore Feast. I was going to... going along with Stormcloud not sacrificing last turn is kind of a signal that there isn't a plan to Gore Feast this turn. But instead, waiting for another charge to get all of those Stormlings up. It was an interesting attack. Queen Grace does actually have stats.
Yeah, it's either a blank attack because he knows he can swing it, or it's to prevent Queen Grace from using her ability, because now if she exhausts to give something -1, the Wolzarg can sacrifice his Biddy Bolt and destroy Queen Grace.
I think he'd rather keep the Biddy Bolt, though.
Probably. And it looks that that is the case. It must have been just I can attack, so I'm going to, just on the off chance I get some damage through.
I mean, traditional Polka doesn't really play combat tricks, does it? You normally maybe see a burn. But even then, if you were going to kill something, why not kill the Benjamin? So at the end of turn, Queen Grace made a human in his hand, -1 cost. He's going to do it again.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to note that as powerful as Queen Grace is, she is a little bit limited in what she can do, as she is not capable of reducing the cost of anything but humans. And she can only give kings, princes, and princesses invincible.
As far as we know in this deck, from our previous features, I think one of the only non-humans in this deck is Side of the Sun.
That's true. And while that does kind of represent to your opponent that you have a human and whatnot, it's interesting because she can reduce the cost of things on the board. Right? Like that's important to notice. She could reduce the cost of a troop you control.
And that's relevant for Inspire.
Yeah. So it looks like without the double wild threshold, the Thunderbird, the Biddy Bolt / Thunderpuff combo is going to be used to destroy the Azurfate sorcerers.
That's a little telling, because using those troops to exhaust and kill rather than Gore Feast is signaling no Gore Feast.
Yeah. It's also kind of interesting because now he sacrifices his ability to use Splashy to destroy Benjamin. Benjamin can swing next turn for fun. That being said, Steel does have the Time Ripple and uses that to return the Azurfate to hand.
And that's not so bad, because Queen Grace can reduce that cost again to whatever he needs for relevant Inspire. Cerulean Mirror Knight, Polka Power.
And the Polka Power. Probably not with the intent of Gore Feast, but actually with the intent of card draw. Because no matter what happens at the end of turn, that Blaze Elemental dies. It has to die. You don't get a choice. You don't get a choice. Well,
but if you shift the void for until the end of the turn power onto him.
Well, there are plenty of ways to keep it alive. But...
So the result of that exchange on that turn, there's an Azurfate Sorceress in Steel's hand, whose cost is further reduced. But to what end? It has bury cards and Spell Shield, correct?
This is true.
So is Steel trying to stay alive long enough, hoping that Gore Feast isn't a thing, long enough to get all of those cards into his opponent's graveyard.
I think that is the plan here, which is why he's now swinging with the Lord Benjamin. And now this is this interesting situation that I talked about, where Splashy is not going to be used to sacrifice to draw for a card, which is one of his most powerful abilities. In fact, if I'm talking strictly, I would prefer to have nothing but Splashies come from my Storm Clouds for the rest of my life. Now, the Azure Fate comes back out. We see a lot of this kind of go down. The Benjamin's off the board, and so is the Splashy. The Gore Feast is still not an issue, but now we see some of the scary cards come out, like Heroic Outlaw. Speed deals damage when it enters play. So this will deal 4 damage immediately to Rabbiton, to Steel, sorry, and can swing this turn. And in response, Steel is going to use the card
we noticed him draw, the Time Ripple.
Time Ripple, to return that Cerulean Mirror Knight to hand. It's incredibly important that, despite the fact that he wants his opponent to run out of cards, that he doesn't let his opponent draw cards. As weird as that is.
Into the graveyard, not into the hand.
Exactly. That being said, there's still a full swing here. That'll be 6 damage. There's no way that Steel can afford to put that Azure Fate Sorceress in front of this. And he only has 2 cards left in hand now, so he needs to start producing results that reduce the size of Wolzarg's deck. We know that he can go through 40 cards in 2 cards. We know that's possible. We saw him do 20 and 19 last time, so... That being said, he does have to stop as much damage as possible, because his opponent is 1 charge away from having another charge ability active. That's interesting.
It's painful, but is it necessary? 6 damage is more than half his remaining health. I don't think you can let go of your win condition, even if it is a lot of damage.
Yeah, going to 5 is especially scary for any deck that's facing against Ruby. You know Rubies have burns. You know they have bolts. They have burn to the ground. They have so many options available to take that for reach.
So, what do you got?
Yeah, it's really a matter of, can he produce results here? And having to exhaust Queen Grace right now to play a card could be the downside. Are we going to see a King Gabriel here is the question.
And if you're going to use he's going to use his charge power this turn, so why not attack with Azure Fate?
Yeah, you got to get as much value out of these troops and 1 Kappa open as possible. We see him use the charge power. He can now reuse Queen Grace.
That was to get King Gabriel out.
King Gabriel out for as cheap as possible, interestingly enough. This, like I said, will bury 19 cards, but in addition to burying 19 cards, it actually gives Steel a spell-shielded 4/4 that cannot take damage. This is actually super important, because now he can throw other things in front of... Like, he can block the Heroic Outlaw and the Buccaneer in the same turn. Gore Feast is no longer enough.
It's also interesting to note that you can barely see it, but I believe Steel has 2 resources open.
He does. Time Ripple's still an option. 1 card left in hand. Time Ripple and Verdict options.
18 cards left in his opponent's deck. 1 card left in Rabbiton's hand. Buccaneer has only a single target, if not his own troop. And that is that Queen Grace.
Yeah, that Buccaneer will have to hit Queen Grace. And again, important to note, down to 18 cards. So another big play could be enough.
He takes Heroic Outlaw back to hand. That is a 4 damage nuke for 7 right now.
It is. And that is fairly important here. I mean, for 7. Because he Buccaneered it. So yes. It'll cost 7. It'll be free in the case that Wolzarg gets that ability to play it, but we'll see what happens here. We are going to likely see the card that we just saw drawn.
Queen Grace makes the Town Crier cost 3. The Azure Fate costs a lot less than 3, so that's inspired. A lot of cards drawn. 2 cards need to be discarded.
Now, of course, the important part here being that if the right cards are drawn, Rabbiton could theoretically win this turn by getting rid of those last 14 cards. But I believe there's only one real option for that in the deck. So likely he's just going to develop the board state a little further.
King Gabriel is steadfast. Can't take prevent damage to him because of Bold Heart and Spell Shield. That's a safe 4 damage. We do have kind of confirmation, though, just as a quick aside, that next month's tournament will be the Diamond Cup, which is a block constructed tournament, set 3 only.
Yeah, so it'll be set 3 only cards. Although, in the most horrible and terrible situation, we...
So, Heroic Outlaw comes down. That
will deal 4 damage. Puts on another resource. Puts down the Polka Charge Power. And actually, that's enough fatal to get that 1 point of damage through.
But 3 cards in hand, and 2 resources still out. So if he can stop all of this damage, which isn't looking so, chat's coming up.
He is opening up the, yeah, there's the good game, well played. That's crazy, because that's kind of all of that stuff was known to Steel. And he does say in chat that he forgot that he said he forgot it had Quick. I assume he means he forgot that the Heroic Outlaw had Speed, which is a perfectly fair thing to forget. Not only did it deal the 4 damage from coming into play that turn, but it could also swing. Additionally, I don't think he had to exhaust Queen Grace there, so he's probably.
I think he did that in preparation for drawing a certain card. Maybe he was looking for something, and just peeking at what he did draw. He did draw a Buccaneer, but the Buccaneer he drew had additional cost on it from being counter magicked earlier.
For what little it's worth, I think Steel has a solid shot at top 8, even if he drops this, doesn't he? I'm not going to do the math there. I don't care. It's not my job to do. It's not my job to do.
I don't know his record.
Both of these players are currently 6-1.
That's pretty good.
I mean, yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot backing this up.
I totally should not have this open. I'm sorry.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did not transition. I suppose it doesn't matter as much as it's round 8, but I shouldn't be slipping.
We all make mistakes. Technophy is sitting there just banging his head against the keyboard. He's like, no! How could this happen to me?
I'm feeling Technophy being able to rest for a little bit is worth it to him. If I were sick, I would be okay with that.
But he's still there. He's listening. He could chime in at any time, aren't you, Technophy? Yeah! See, there he is. He never leaves. I'm totally here and feeling okay.
Oh, in that case. Alright, game 2 is starting.
I love doing extra work for no reason. Technophy. Yep, so they are challenging each other for their next match. Don't mess with me! Naturally, as the loser of the last match, Steel will get to choose whether to play or draw, and chooses to play.
A Wow Gnome. A Yordle.
I don't think any of the Yordles sound like that. Like, aside from Teemo, they all have, like, fairly, like, I would say miniature, but not, like, squeaky voices. And even Teemo's voice isn't necessarily squeaky. Technophy doesn't really sound like a Wow Gnome or a Yordle. Technophy as a Hex Mickey Mouse, I'd pay to see that drawing. I've always imagined him as a gremlin.
We see like Steamboat Willie, but instead of a boat, we see a live stream.
Yeah, he's just like steering it. All right, so the players have figured out who's going first and second and have drawn their opening hands. Mr. Phobes announcing that he reaches top 8 status. Congratulations. I believe this is your first Cup of Fate tournament.
Any given Saturday. You too could be in the top 8 on the Cup of Fate. It's the Shard Cup. The Cup of Fate series.
Actually, I think that's the first time that card has ever made it to the top 8 now that I see Phobes' his deck list. That's cool.
Well, you'll have to highlight that for us when it comes time to discuss anyway. Game is beginning in 80-20-101.
It's your first constructed tournament. Congratulations, Mr. Phobes. The set 3 packs that you'll make for this are more than enough to make up just hitting the top 8. So, we see both players leading off with Sapphires. Wolzarg now getting that Ruby out. Now, here's a thought process that I come to a lot, having played a lot of Gore Feast in my time. I think I usually lead with the Ruby. There's no one Sapphire nonsense to worry about, but Ruby does represent burn. It's a very tiny play choice, but it's worth mentioning.
It could be, you're safe from burn, play your 2 health thing. 2 defense thing that I will kill in the following turn. It's minor. Overall minor, but could invite your opponent to play something. It's like in draft when you have a Sappers charge, your opponent definitely won't play, if they realize it, won't play 2 defense things willy-nilly. But indeed, there was a burn.
There was a burn, an alternate art burn. The class. We see the swing by the Cerulean Mirror Knight. Always a strong move swinging with your Cerulean Mirror Knight. There's a lot of things that can punish you for that, but in the case of Wolzarg here, he is facing an opponent with no resources open, so you notice that's free. Tunnels a troop as well. There are a bunch of good tunneling troop variants in Gore Feast lists, so that could be just about anything. We see Snap Lord Benjamin, Shard, and do we see a follow-up troop here? No. Rabbiton passes the turn.
Yep, and of note, that was the side of the sun that was burnt. A very key troop to what Steel wants to do in there. Being able to play multiple things for a lot. Wolzarg just pulling out all the removal, though. Crackling Bolt, answered by Verdict.
That Crackling Bolt gets answered by Verdict. So that's card for card that they've traded, but the Lord Benjamin Steel is hoping will replace itself in card advantage here. Obviously, he's not going to chump block here. That's not a situation he wants to deal with. Now, that being said, card for card is advantageous for Wolzarg here, who is up a card at the moment. But after this Lord Benjamin swings, things could very drastically change. Again, worth noting, Wolzarg is running Sapphire Ruby, is running Polka. We don't know if he has Gore Feast. We haven't seen any, but Gore Feast always got to be a concern here. So in a situation like this where Lord Benjamin could have found certain cards, you might play them more offensively than you would. Just, you want your board state to have relevance, because you cannot let yourself die to Gore Feast. And that is 2 separate attack steps. It's very different as far as combat math runs.
We saw Benjamin pick up that Buccaneer, and Buccaneering that Cerulean Mirror Knight does mess up its ability to help Wolzarg draw cards, as a lot of, not all, but a lot of its troops have 2 cost, and that's the need to replay that, There's not many 1-cost things. I guess now he can play Mirror Knight and something else 2-cost, but no. Instead, Royal Falconer, very timely Buccaneer of that Mirror Knight, because had that stayed on the board, all 3 of those troops would have gained when this dies draw a card, and die they will. They can't really stay on the board, either blocked or otherwise dealt with.
Now we actually see kind of a terrifying position. Rabbit. This is like, if you're ever playing against Gorfies, the last troop you want to see hit the board is
Royal Falconer.
It's so scary. I mean, he can swing in now, and it's entirely possible he gets to draw a card off Benjamin. He is actually chumping with one of the Falconers. This is probably like second best case scenario.
I'm trying to think of what in Coyote shards. What in Coyote shards can stop this? And I guess just throwing
more
troops
troops,
away. Yeah.
More troops. Trading favorably, keeping card advantage with Benjamin.
That's an interesting
Agent
card.
of Mole! That's crazy. That doesn't... It isn't particularly sweet in this matchup.
No.
Rabbiton's not...
It's awesome still,
cards, but it's a great card. And specifically of note here is Agent of Mole. Oh, we're seeing everything.
What?
Let the bodies hit the floor. Well, because the Blaze Elemental will draw 2 cards now. That's to redraw his.
No, I understand that. Mole doesn't need to hit anything to put booby traps into opponents' decks. When while it's tunneled, it gains a counter for a sabotage counter for every turn it's underground. And when it attacks, it gains a tunneling counter,
a sabotage
counter, and then it puts booby traps. If you draw this, void this, and take 4 damage into your opponent's deck for each sabotage counter. So now, just simply taking 4 damage out of nowhere is a possibility. A growing possibility, perhaps. That's really weird. I mean, interesting. Perhaps a placeholder for other cards, but our players' records are pretty strong. So,
yeah, I mean, it does a lot of things. It punishes opponents for card draw. It provides a mediocre defensive body. It is maybe a Reese. The Agent of Mole is always maybe a Reese. And I feel like that's probably the key point in Agent of Mole, is it's a tunneling 3 troop, so until the 3rd troop you don't know. So a lot of the time you think, okay, that's not a Fisher Smith, but my opponent is playing Sapphire, so it's either a Spy or a Reese. So it gets to 2 counters and you're like, okay, that must be Reese. There wasn't a single person here who was like, that's Agent of Mole, unless they've already played against Wolzarg. So we see the swings here. Wolzarg will likely chump another Falcon in front of that Lord Benjamin. He's going to be up in cards now. He's going to be putting more and more sabotage counters into Steel's deck. And this is incredibly important because every dead draw is a good situation for him.
Is this a Gorefeast deck without Gorefeast? How next level would that be?
I can't imagine. Okay, so as time has progressed, Gorefeast decks have run less and less Gorefeast. It's possible it's not running Gorefeast because the Ruby Sapphire mid-range deck is still very powerful. But I cannot imagine that you would run Royal Falconers, Polka, all of that, and not include a Gorefeast at the very least. We do see the first Azurfate Sorceress come out. It has Spell Shield active, and this is a threat to Wolzarg. He's not about to lose this game to health, but he could certainly lose it to his cards being buried. And even more terrifying for him at this moment is he can no longer swing with his Agent of Mole. I mean, he will put 5 more booby traps in, and actually that's fine for him. But it is entirely... Yeah, Rabbiton can now double block with Buccaneer and Azurfate safely. Although he is going to use just Her Majesty.
Not really safely. There's always the threat of more removal.
Well, yeah, but even if he burns the Buccaneer, the Azure Fate, like he can't do anything to the Azure Fate, and then you just lose the Buccaneer to what you were going to lose it to anyway, right?
I wonder why the conservative block.
I mean, could have just been worried about playing around other things. There's a lot of possibilities there. Also, of note, I think Steel used his Queen Grace in second main, and a Gorefeast player can still play Gorefeast in second main. So we see 19 cards going to get buried out by His Majesty King Gabriel, as well as Bold Heart here. 21 cards remaining in Wolzarg's deck. Even if another King Gabriel comes out, that's another 19 cards. That means Wolzarg possibly has 2 turns left. Only 1 card left in Rabbiton's hand, and he should be adding 6 more sabotage counters to Steel's deck. So we'll see if there's a troop play here.
A tense moment. It turns out to only be Agent of Mole.
Agent of Mole.
In his final mission.
Now, it will be the last time he swings, but he has put, what was that, 11, 15 sabotage counters. Troop, and sabotages. Booby traps. Booby traps. That's the word I'm looking for. That means about a fourth of Steel's deck is primed to blow him up upon draw. We'll see if it happens here. No. He draws a card.
Draws a pretty good card.
Draws a really good card for him here.
That's not the card I thought he would play. Still a pretty good one, but 12 cards left in his opponent's deck.
One more troop is gonna, like, what Town Crier is 2/2, so that's 4/8. Yeah, I mean, most things are getting to the danger level for Wolzarg here. He has to be able to close out this game as soon as possible.
The window of opportunity was there if Gorefeast was a thing. Gorefeast right now is a little less of a thing. There are blockers. One of them doesn't die.
Yeah, one of them is invincible. We see
that's an interesting decision. Crackling Bolt
to the face.
To the face.
Bulk
of Power.
Well, that's probably to draw 2 cards there.
It's either something sneaky, or the Attack of Desperate. No. Just a doubled card draw, I guess. Not wanting to take 3, he'll get the card draw after combat.
Yeah, now this is an interesting decision, right? You want to block to stop your opponent from having the 3 cards drawn, but you do allow your opponent to draw 2 cards immediately now, and one of those is Agent of Mole. So a second of Agent of Mole has come in here, which isn't necessarily fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. The board state is not much better for Wolzarg at this point.
And this may be the last turn. I'm almost
no booby trap.
There's certainly probably something on there like a Hero of Adamant, unless this reveal is completely zeroed out. Hey, a booby trap. 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 5 humans there. That is a 10-10.
Yeah, that'll be enough. But the booby traps did lessen the chance that was going to be...
That is true.
A total blowout. That being said, that's enough. Wolzarg will be reduced to 0 cards in deck. Now, that's game 2. They're 1-1. Nothing Wolzarg... Well, Wolzarg does have a theoretical out, I think. No, there's nothing.
He has to win before trying to draw a card.
Yeah, he has to use burn, burn, burn. And that has to somehow kill him.
What is in the major socket of Azure Fate? That would be a prime sapphire of whatever buries cards equal to attack plus defense. I don't remember its name. Do you remember its name?
I'm pretty sure it's Sabotage. It might be Mischief. Subterfuge. Subterfuge.
Subterfuge.
Yeah. That's the major sapphire of subterfuge and the minor wild orb of conservation or primordium. I'm pretty sure it's conservation.
Wolzarg will draw a card, but cannot draw a card, and then fall
That
in
is a
battle.
lost condition. So if I have one card left in my deck and I Oracle Song myself, do I lose? I do lose. Any draw that you can't draw is a loss, right?
Right. So simply having 0 isn't the loss condition. It is trying to draw from your empty deck.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that a diversification option would be to say that if you were to bury a card and the opponent's deck had none, they would lose. So interestingly enough, burying is actually less powerful than allowing your opponent to draw the last couple of cards. That's weird. It's just a game design thought there.
I think with ways to just simply bury tons of cards off of a deck, giving a slight opportunity for something to happen during end phases and in the prep phase is just a minor. Like making the win condition, they have to draw a card makes it so that you're not just like, oh, bury 40, you lose. Whereas you may have the win just in prep phase before you draw, because it's not like damage. And if you can't finish off the bury, then you're stranded in the middle. All right, looks like we'll be in Game 3 shortly.
This will be the deciding match for these players, I believe. This is, of course, an important match. Now, yeah, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into the discussion I want to get into, but I'm glad that these players are playing this out and there's a lot on the line.
Let's get that up.
So we see the opening shard plays here. Now, the Gorefeast deck does perform better on the play. That is always going to be the case for the Gorefeast Sapphire Ruby deck, is it wants to go first. The kitten gif is pretty adorable. I agree. I assume the game is over since Wolzarg is now watching the thing. They're on a 5-minute delay, so we can expect this game to end within 5 minutes.
Mirror Knight. Mentalist.
A lot of the Cerulean troops hitting the board here. I know, aggro decks want to go first is a revealing metaphysical situation that I'm allowing deep insight onto the game. It is something I've said several times, and I will say it again here. Sometimes you got to point out the obvious because not everyone in the chat knows these things. So we see a very early Royal Falcon, turn 4 Royal Falcon.
Wow.
With the Cerulean Mentalist on the board. And now also playing that Poke Charge Power. Again, a little bit of a signal that the Gorefeast isn't in hand, but now Steel either has to choose to block or allow Wolzarg to draw a card. Wolzarg draws a card, goes to 5 cards in hand, mostly makes up for the lost card by going first.
So this is a Town Crier to draw 2, discard 2.
It's searching for an answer here because, like we've said multiple times, a gore feast with those falcons in the sky. I was going to say those birds, but they're falcons. They're far more noble than petty birds. Is pretty much it.
Those two alone, 14 damage. And with no resources open, if there is in fact a Gore Feast in this Poké deck, it should happen right here. Nope, that is a Crackling Bolt. Who needs Gore Feast when you have Crackling Bolts for days?
Those Crackling Bolts will clear up Steel's side of the board, and now they allow for a pretty massive swing here. We see 8 damage coming in, and more importantly, 2 more cards will be drawn to Wolzarg's side of the board here, and that card advantage, of course, bringing him back up to 5 cards. He's still behind Steel in total cards, but his board presence is so strong, and we know from the shards he's running, he doesn't really have an answer. He doesn't have a Sorrow to clear out the birds. He doesn't have Extinction. He doesn't have multiple kill actions. He's just kind of not in a great spot here. So we see the Hero of Adamant hit the board. It will reveal 4 humans, become an 8/8. Now it can clog up the ground, but it's not going to do anything to slow down those birds, and they will continue to draw cards if that's the way things go.
The Kaitel Shards, Diamond, Sapphire, WoW, just aren't really equipped to handle this just mass, with some sort of mass anti-troop. And a Buccaneer will hit the board. No need for Gore Feast. Just answer everything. He's got a charge for Poke's charge power anyway.
Yeah, and he says he has to say good game. No Wild was the slowdown there. Even a little bit of Sight of Sun gaining health here could have made a huge difference, but we see Steel is going to have to concede, and that means Wolzarg will move into 7-1 position, and Steel will take a 6-2 at the moment, but Steel was a very high 6-1 going into this, so we'll see how things play out.